something installed in the CEVs too, that know working with your neighbors. So if you have neighbors that are handicapped that can't get out, know that and work with your neighbors, work as a group to make sure everybody on your street or in your block gets out safely, gets out together. That way you can work together.
Did you still have a comment? Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm trying to keep track.
I think it's just a reminder for all the homeowners that live up on the hill that it's, if you haven't clear cut and maintained your yards, it's time to do it now.
Thank you. You are absolutely correct. Yes, sir.
To that point, we have the twice a year dumpster collection of waste material.
Yes.
Can we get a fire sale? Can we get a special money?
We are actually in the way of trying to plan that right now. You're absolutely right, because we've always done it as just a yard cleanup, and certainly it's come to mind that we are going to try to either schedule an additional one or shift it so that when it's during the weed cleanup season that you have dumpster boxes put in.
Yeah, because I think you're going to get a volume of material that will...
You're right, we are. We're getting a bunch, and the reality is it's private weeds, but we recognize that it's a community good to provide a place for people to dump, and if it helps somebody clean up their yard, I think it's a great idea.
Second comment, I live at 201 Trinity. As soon as the sirens went off, I went up the hill and watched, and Brisbane truck was in place at the end of Trinity. About 15-20 minutes later, the first CDF guy came walking up the fire road with a walkie-talkie. I guess my question is, do you have integrated communications with CDF to the point, I know someone, although Brisbane doesn't have the jurisdiction to go up on the hill and attack the fire, someone certainly could have been on point to provide CDF with information a good 20-30 minutes before they arrived on the scene. So
I'll let you
let me back up a little bit. CAL FIRE and North County Fire were there immediately, and we went into what's considered unified command. So we have common frequencies. That's how we talked to the helicopter that got there right away. It was between CAL FIRE. What we actually did is we divided it up. I became the incident commander because I got there. CAL FIRE took the job of operations, which meant that they were talking to all the fire companies. We were all together at a command post working on this. So absolutely, we were working off the same frequencies. We had tactical frequencies assigned, command frequencies assigned. We were all talking from the first Engine 81 arriving till today. We're on common frequencies, and we do that routinely all the time in this county, and that includes CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE is integrated into this county. They're integrated statewide. We're actually in this state way ahead of every other state in the union because we're already integrated as it relates to our communications. Sherry.
Back to the question of removing elderly and disabled people from the community. As a community emergency volunteer, once you have a route, we go door to door on our route, and we know who our neighbors are who need help. We have a list that we keep in the bag that is provided to us through the city, and most people on their routes would know who needs to be evacuated. The problem lies in if we had 100% of our CEVs active in an emergency, we are still at least 77 volunteers short to cover our city.
Thank you. That's a great point to see these.
I just wanted to comment because I'm at 136 Trinity, and as the police officers were coming around, and I can't see the gentleman here, but there were so many of us telling the police where the seniors were, to get out, and it's like we're a community, we know. So just volunteer that information. That's where you can be part of the solution.
Right.
And I also wanted to bring up something about parking, and I think possibly the city might want to look at really getting strict about people parking on the right side of white lines. And a couple years ago, when you repainted the curbs, the curve on Trinity was painted red, which some of us thought was a great idea. That's right next to my house. And there were some complaints about it, and it got painted gray. There was a truck sitting there, and I don't see her here, but we were trying to figure out. We knew who belonged to, and he was parked totally legally. But somebody else went into the neighbor's house. They were out on a family outing, but she knew where the keys were, and we finally got the truck moved. And I think we maybe need to revisit that curve being red again, And also, you know, when there's construction, and we all know the construction workers, and we sympathize with them, they need to park by their spots. But if they're parked where a fire engine can't get through, it's kind of a moot point. I mean, we need to make people park correctly
I agree,
all the time.
And I want to note it for the record that it was not the city engineer who made it. I was nearly tarred and feathered the last time I brought that idea. Thank you for being my
I'll
foil.
collect my $20 out.
Sure, good.
You brought up a great point, and I'll say that's the elephant in the room.
Oops.
We want a white line program, but we need community to support it, and that hasn't been the case in the past. And there's a perfect example. You saw what happens if we don't do it. And we've gone many, many years in this community without a major fire. Unfortunately, this major fire did not come into the community, but you see all the barriers. So all I'll say, since I'm not the public works director, is that I support the white line, the red curves, but it's something this community has to support, has to back, and has to decide they want to do it.
And I want to note, I didn't write it down either. That was my former assistant, Shelley. Did you still have it?
No, Karen covered it.
Karen covered it. Okay, gentleman right here, and then you're next.
My question was, what kind of measures are in place to prevent, or at least minimize the size of fires on the mountain? Like, I don't know, I've heard that there's supposed to be like some kind of program to control burn or something on the mountain?
I can't speak a whole lot, but what I'll tell you is we're very hesitant, as is CAL FIRE, to start fires because sometimes they don't go well. And so we really have a very short time when it isn't really wet to try and do anything up there. But there's also a balance in terms of from the side of the environmental side, and I can't speak to that. So there's a balance in there, but we're very hesitant to want to put fire down.
But is there some kind of plan to at least attempt to minimize the size of fires on the mountain?
I don't have an answer for you because I know that I'll just go back to saying, there's a balance between, it's kind of like the white line thing. There's things we should be doing, but it's going to have a little bit of impact on the environment in terms of trying to protect this community. We got to find the balance. We have to have people say it's okay to put protection around the community and allow for the environment there. But there's a whole group that deals with that and talks about it. We're just one little piece. But if you talk to a firefighter, we're going to say there ought to be things there that are not there. But we haven't been successful in making that happen.
The city doesn't make an effort to put a plan together of some sort, or an effort to address it in a considered fashion?
I think the plan is the response plan that we developed starting back as far as 2004, and certainly it's been the efforts that have been in place nearly for decades prior to that to respond to a fire. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I live on Humboldt, and in connection with the the traffic situation, I noticed there was a Burlingame engine going north and a Millbrae engine coming south on Humboldt. They could not pass each other. There were 2 cop cars there, and there was a traffic jam, and the Millbrae engine had to back up all the way to the hairpin turn. So it occurs to me that something like on a Navy ship, whenever there's any kind of an emergency, they sound general quarters and all companionways and ladders become one way. And it might make sense for us that in the event of a fire, especially the Humboldt, Trinity, and Kings should be made one-way streets so that we don't have that happen.
I hear you. That's a very valid point. And part of our evacuation plan, we do have direction of routes predicted. That doesn't mean that every time we get an engine coming in that they're going to follow the route. Let's face it, people come in here and they get lost. It just happens. Even if you try and tell them, turn here, do this, they're coming to. But your point is extremely well taken, and we've tried to implement it.
And I realize that ignorant help is better than no help. But I'm just saying that we could easily advise them when they come in with a map of, which streets are going to work for them.
Right. Absolutely appreciate that comment. I think I'm